The car door opened before it even stopped moving. Amaka didn't fall, she was thrown. Her body hit the red dirt road like something discarded, like garbage tossed from a window. She rolled twice, her knees tearing open on gravel, her cheek kissing the ground so hard she tasted blood before she tasted air. The black Mercedes didn't brake, didn't slow. The tail lights just shrank into the dark like two red eyes deciding she wasn't worth looking at. 17 years old. No phone, no shoes, no idea where she was. The night swallowed everything, the car, the sound, the last thread of the life she had known. Crickets screamed. Something in the bush moved. Amaka lay there on that empty road, her light brown skin caked in dust, her chest heaving, her eyes wide and wet, and she made herself one silent promise. If I survive this night, I will never be powerless again. She didn't know yet that a man was watching. She didn't know yet that everything was about to change. Before we go into the main part of the story, tell us where you are watching the story from and which part you like most in this story. And don't forget to subscribe. 3 days earlier. Friday, 6:14 p.m. The ADYMI household, LKKI Phase 1. The house smelled like new money and old lies. Amaka stood in the kitchen doorway watching Tami, her father's wife, a woman who had entered their lives 4 years ago wrapped in silk and sweet smiles, plate jollof rice with the careful precision of someone performing for an audience. Her nails were freshly done. Her lace front was perfect. Her smile, when she turned and noticed Amaka, was the kind that never reached the eyes. "You're home early," Tami said. Not welcome home. Not how was school. Just an observation like Amaka's presence was a slight inconvenience to the atmosphere. "We closed at 5 today." Amaka moved to the fridge, pulled out water. "Is Daddy home?" "Your father," Tami said, her voice cooling 1 degree, "has a board meeting. He won't be back until late." She set the plate on the counter, 1 plate, and walked out. Amaka looked at the single plate, looked at the empty stove, looked at her reflection in the dark kitchen window, her wide eyes, her high cheekbones, the soft glow of her brown skin, and felt something she had been refusing to name for 4 years finally settle like stone in her chest. She wants me gone. She just didn't know yet how far gone Tami actually meant. Friday night, 11:52 p.m. Amaka woke to voices. Not arguing voices, conspiring voices. Low, deliberate, the kind of conversation people have when they think walls don't listen. She pressed her ear to her bedroom door. "The account has to be fully in your name before his birthday, if she finds out what he put in the will." Her father's voice. "She's 17, Tami, she's a child." "She's a problem." Temi's voice was flat, final, like a judge reading a sentence. "Charles, I have handled everything for this family, everything. I am not going to let a teenage girl with her dead mother's eyes walk into half of what we built." Silence. "There are ways," Tami continued. "Quiet ways, ways that don't come back." More silence, the kind that kills. Amaka pulled away from the door. Her hands were shaking. Her father, the man who used to carry her on his shoulders at the beach, who cried at her mother's funeral, who called her his heartbeat, said nothing. No defense. "No, Tami, stop. Nothing." She went back to bed and stared at the ceiling and understood, for the first time, what it felt like to be truly alone in a house full of people. She should have run that night. She didn't, because she still believed fathers protected their daughters. That was her last innocent belief. Saturday. Temi was different in the morning. Warm, suspiciously, disturbingly warm. She made breakfast, eggs, toast, fresh juice, and slid a plate to Amaka with a smile that almost looked real. "I've been thinking," she said, sitting across from her, folding her hands like a woman in a business meeting, "that you and I have never really bonded. Your father worries about it." Amaka looked at the eggs, looked at Temi, said nothing. "There's a charity gala on Monday night," Temi continued. "Very exclusive. I'd love for you to come, wear something nice. Show Lagos who Charles Adami's daughter is." She reached across the table and touched Amaka's hand. "You're so beautiful, Amaka, you should be seen." The touch felt like a spider walking across her skin. But what was she going to say? No, I heard you tell my father you want me erased. She had no proof. No allies, no money of her own. Her mother's sister lived in Abuja, 3 states away, and barely picked up calls. Okay, Amaka said. I'll go. Temi smiled, and it was the smile of someone who had already won. Sunday. She tried to reach her Aunt Chisholm. The call went to voicemail. She tried again. Voicemail. She typed a long text, "Something is wrong in this house, I'm scared, please call me," and watched it deliver. 2 blue ticks. No reply. She searched her father's name online. Found an article from 3 months ago. Adami Holdings CEO restructures estate plans ahead of expansion. Buried in the 3rd paragraph. Sources indicate the restructuring includes provisions for primary heir Amaka Adami, 17, set to inherit controlling shares upon the CEO's death or her 18th birthday, whichever comes first. Her 18th birthday was in 11 days. She sat with her phone and let that number sink into her bones. 11 days. Temi wasn't going to wait for the birthday. Monday night, the night of the gala. The dress Temi picked for her was red. Of course it was red. Amaka wore it because she had a plan, now thin and fragile as paper, but a plan. She would go. She would find her father alone, away from Temi, and she would tell him she knew. She would look him in the eyes and make him choose. The gala was at a hotel in Victoria Island. Glittering chandeliers, men in agbatas and Italian suits, women draped in jewelry worth small countries. Amaka moved through it all like someone walking through a dream, her light brown skin catching the gold light, her eyes scanning the room for her father. She found him near the bar. Temi was attached to his arm like a beautiful tumor. She tried to get close. Temi's eyes found hers across the room, and in that look Amaka saw it. The plan was already in motion. Temi had known she would try something tonight. This was why she'd been invited. To be managed. 2 men appeared at Amaka's sides. Big, quiet, not security, too expensive for security, too cold. They smiled like they were escorting her to a better view. She had no choice but to follow. They led her out a side door, down a corridor, into a car she didn't recognize. The door locked. Her father never looked up from his drink. 2:47 a.m., the highway. Now you know how she got here. Dirt road, no shoes, blood on her knees, the Merced's gone. Amaka stood up slowly, the way you stand up when your body isn't sure it still belongs to you. The bush on both sides of the road was thick and black. No streetlights, no houses, the kind of nowhere that doesn't appear on maps. She started walking, because what else do you do? She walked for what felt like 40 minutes, her feet bleeding, her red dress ruined, her mind cycling through cold calculations. Survive, survive, survive. When headlights appeared behind her, she froze. The car slowed. She stepped off the road, ready to run into the bush, ready to disappear, when the window rolled down and a voice cut through the dark. Low, measured, accented in a way she couldn't immediately place. "You're bleeding." She turned. The man looking at her from the passenger window was not Nigerian, not the men Temi had sent. He was Korean, sharp-jawed, angular features carved like something architectural, a face that looked like it had been designed rather than born. Dark eyes that caught the dashboard light. He looked at her the way no one had looked at her in a very long time. Not like a problem. Not like an obstacle. Like a person. "Get in," he said. "I won't hurt you." Amaka looked at the car, looked at the road behind her, the dark, the nothing, the highway that stretched toward whatever Temi thought was waiting for her. Then she looked at him again. "Who are you?" she asked. The man was quiet for exactly 1 second. "My name is Young," he said, "and I think someone just tried to kill you." She got in the car. She didn't know yet that the man offering her safety ran the most dangerous criminal network in East Asia. She didn't know yet that the highway she'd been dumped on was the exact road his men used to move their most sensitive cargo. She didn't know yet that her father owed Young's organization $4 million. And she didn't know yet, not yet, that Tami hadn't hired just anyone to make her disappear. She'd hired his people. Inside the car, 3:09 a.m. The car was the quietest place Amaka had ever been. Not peaceful quiet, expensive quiet, the kind that came from soundproofed doors and leather so thick it absorbed everything: noise, breathing, panic. Two men sat in the front without turning around. Young sat beside her with the stillness of someone who had learned, long ago, that stillness was its own kind of power. He didn't ask her questions. He handed her a cloth for her knees, said nothing while she pressed it against the blood. That silence undid her more than anything else could have. "You said my father owes you money," Amaka said finally, her voice steadier than she felt. Young turned his head slowly. "I said someone tried to kill you. I didn't say anything about your father." She looked at him. "Then how do you know who I am?" The car moved through the dark. Young's angular face was unreadable, all sharp lines and controlled expression, like a sculpture that had learned to breathe. "I know everyone on this road," he said, "and I know what it means when someone ends up on it at 3 a.m. with no shoes." "What does it mean?" "It means," he said quietly, "that someone paid a very specific price to a very specific person." He paused. "One of my people." The cloth in her hands went still. "You're saying," Amaka said slowly, "that whoever tried to have me killed hired your organization to do it." "Yes. And your people put me on this road instead of—" She couldn't finish it. "My lieutenant made a decision," Young said. "Against orders, he'll answer for that separately." His jaw tightened almost imperceptibly. "But you're alive, that's what matters now." Amaka stared at him. 17 years old, barefoot, bleeding, sitting next to a man who had just calmly explained that his criminal network had been contracted to end her life. And somehow this was the safest she had felt in 4 days. That told her everything she needed to know about how bad things had gotten. "Where are you taking me?" she asked. "Somewhere Tami Ademi cannot reach." Her breath caught. "You know her name." "I know her account number," Young said. "I know the transfer she made 3 days ago. I know the phone she used to make the call." He looked at her fully now, those dark eyes direct and unblinking. "I know everything, Amaka. The question is what you want to do with it." 3:51 a.m. An unmarked compound, IKOYI. The building looked like a luxury apartment from the outside. Inside, it was something else entirely. Screens on every wall, men moving with military precision, conversations happening in 3 languages simultaneously. A woman in a tailored suit handed Young a tablet without breaking stride. Amaka stood in the middle of it and understood. In the full-body way you understand things that rearrange your worldview, that she had not been rescued by a good man. She had been rescued by a powerful one. There was a difference. She was smart enough to know that. Young turned to her. "You'll stay here tonight. There's a room prepared." "I'm not going to a room," Amaka said. "I want to see what you have on Temi." He looked at her for a long moment. Something shifted in his expression, barely. A fraction of assessment. "You're not afraid," he said, "not a question." "I'm terrified," she said, "but fear doesn't mean stop." He almost smiled. Almost. He gestured toward the screens. What she saw on those screens, rewritten her entire childhood. Temi Ademi, born Temilola Fashola, Ibadan, 1987, had not met her father at a charity event the way the story always went. She had been placed. 3 years of deliberate positioning, engineered introductions, a manufactured romance built on a spreadsheet of her father's vulnerabilities. Every detail calculated. His grief over Amaka's late mother, his loneliness, his ego. "She's been laundering money through Ademi Holdings for 2 years, Young said, pointing to transaction threads on the screen. "Your father, we believe, didn't know at first. Then he found out." A pause. "And then he became complicit." Amaka's chest cracked quietly. "He chose her." "He chose survival," Young said. "Men like your father confuse the two." "And the inheritance, the will. When Temi discovered what your mother had legally protected for you, shares that couldn't be touched, that transferred to you automatically at 18 regardless of your father's wishes. She had two options. He turned to look at her. Change the law or change the air. 11 days. The number pulsed in her head like a wound. She has 11 days, Amaka said. Had, Young corrected. Now she has a problem. Then came the twist that changed everything. The woman in the tailored suit reappeared, handed Young the tablet again. This time he looked at it for 3 full seconds, which, Amaka was already learning, was the equivalent of anyone else reacting with open shock. He turned the screen toward her. It was a photo. Security footage, time-stamped 40 minutes ago. Her father's house. Tami standing in the foyer, and beside her, a face Amaka recognized with a jolt that felt physical. Her Aunt Chisholm. The woman she had texted. Something is wrong, I'm scared, please call me. Standing in Temi's foyer, laughing. No, Amaka whispered. Your aunt, Young said carefully, has been in contact with your stepmother for 14 months. The blue ticks, the silence, the ignored calls. Chisholm hadn't ignored her messages. Chisholm had forwarded them. Amaka sat down on the nearest chair because her legs made the decision before her brain could argue. She pressed both hands flat on her thighs and breathed 1 breath, 2, because if she didn't anchor herself right now, she was going to come completely apart in front of a Korean Mafia boss at 4 in the morning, and she absolutely refused to do that. Everyone, she said quietly, everyone. Not everyone, Young said, and his voice had changed, still controlled, but something underneath it, something almost human. You're in this room. She looked up at him. He looked back, angular jaw, dark eyes. A man who had ordered more terrible things than she could imagine, and yet in this moment was the only person on earth she could trust. What happened next moved fast? Because Temi was not sitting still. By dawn, she would know the road had failed. By morning, she would know Amaka was alive. By afternoon, she would make another move, and the second move, Young explained with clinical precision, would not be outsourced. She'll use her own people this time, he said. Which means she's cutting the trail back to her, which means she's preparing to be visible, to report you missing, to grieve publicly. She's going to play the worried stepmother, Amaka said. While hunting you with her other hand, he closed the tablet. We have a narrow window. To do what? He met her eyes. To make sure you walk into that inheritance office on your 18th birthday, alive. With enough evidence to bury Temi and your father both. He tilted his head slightly. If that's what you want. Amaka thought about the red dress, the single plate on the counter, her father's silence through the wall, her aunt's blue ticks. What do you get out of this? She asked. Temi used my network without my authorization, he said flatly. She went through a lieutenant who operates outside my direct chain. That is a problem for my organization's reputation, a very expensive problem. His eyes stayed on hers. Correcting it publicly, through you, corrects it for me. So I'm useful to you. Yes. She appreciated that he didn't dress it up. And if I say no, if I just want to disappear, then I give you a passport, money, and a flight out tonight. You walk away. You live somewhere quiet and small, and Temi inherits everything your mother worked for. He paused. That option also exists. Amaka stood up. 17 years old. Feet still raw. Dress still ruined. She stood up in that room full of screens and dangerous men, and she pulled her shoulders back the way her mother used to, her mother who had apparently been smart enough to legally protect her future before anyone could steal it. I don't want quiet and small, she said. I want my life back. Young nodded once. Then we start now. But here is what neither of them knew yet. What Temi had told Young's lieutenant. The real reason she needed Amaka gone before the inheritance transferred wasn't just about money. The shares Amaka's mother had protected weren't just valuable. They unlocked something. A controlling vote on the Adami Holdings board, a board that had been secretly acquired, piece by piece, over 4 years, by a shell company. Young pulled up the shell company registration at 5 a.m., cross-referencing it with his own organization's financial intelligence network, and stopped completely still. the shell company that had been quietly buying control of her father's empire, was registered to Young's own father, the man who had built the Korean network, the man Young had been slowly, carefully, secretly dismantling from the inside for 3 years, the man who was the reason Young operated out of Lagos instead of Seoul. His father wasn't just connected to this story. His father was this story. Amaka's inheritance wasn't just her legacy. It was the last piece his father needed to control an empire worth $300 million. And now Young, the man sworn to protect her, was the son of the man who wanted her dead most of all. He stood with his back to her, staring at the screen, and made a decision in the space of 4 seconds that would cost him everything. He closed the file. He turned around. He said, "Get some rest, we move at noon," and said nothing else. Amaka went to the room and lay on a bed that probably cost more than her school fees and stared at the ceiling. She thought she was finally on the right side. She didn't know the man protecting her was keeping a secret that could get them both killed. She didn't know that by noon, his father would already know she was alive. She didn't know that the real war, the one that had been building since before she was born, was only just beginning. And she didn't know that the inheritance her mother left her wasn't just shares. Hidden inside the legal documents, in language only a mother who feared everything would write, was a name. A name that connected everything. Young's mother's name.